Hello, it's Philip Taylor speaking from Richmond Green Chambers in London. This morning I'm looking at a book which we've looked at before. It's in a new edition. It's from LexisNexis using the Butterworths imprint and title. And it's this book here. It's Butterworths Insolvency Law Handbook, which is now in a 16th edition. It's been edited by two people, Glen Queen's Counsel and Marcus Haywood. And it's a heavy book. You can see it's very useful. It's got various shaded sections here to find the bits that you may be looking for. Obviously we use post-it notes. You can see the structure of the book very clearly from the inside of it. It's very, very detailed. It's everything you need to know. Just so that little advertising for LexisNexis, Butterworths. Those are the other titles they produce. Now at the back you've got quite a useful, when I get to it, quite a useful and very detailed index, which is very much what you would expect from this title. You've, as I say, got a huge amount of information. These are, for instance, the special insolvency regimes, give you an idea there of what's available. The book is actually it's a paperback, and it's running to something approaching, I'm just looking at the actual numbers here, well in excess of 2,000 pages. So it's actually a heavy book. The front of it is there, as you can see, and then there is a useful little section just at the beginning, which is the preface, which sets out where we are today. This is as up to date as you're going to get. It was published in April 2014. You can see the information there. Then of course the preface, as I say, is well worth looking at. Then you've got the set out, the actual contents themselves for the 2014 edition. And then there's an alphabetical list of contents as well, which also helps. I found this with a number of the specialist publications, that you need to actually know where you're looking for the particular information, and it launches straight in to the Insolvency Act itself, and then obviously it goes on from there. What you have got, of course, which is to be expected, are the notes. Now if you've used the White Book or any of the other main publications that are around, you will know that the notes are extremely helpful. That's actually the back of the book, and the spine. Back shows you a little bit. You will know that the notes to accompany the statutes and the rules are extremely useful, because that is where, when you're presenting a case to a judge, that is where the information will be, and the submissions that you're making will actually have either favour or be rejected. Now, we've written a review of this work, and we've given it a title, The Essential Reference for Insolvency Practitioners, now in a new 16th edition. And very welcome it is too. I have an insolvency practice, and I use this book in it, and it's actually very useful to have. And you will probably find this handbook actually in court as well, so that's useful to know, because at the end of the day you need to know what the district judge or the circuit judge is using in terms of its reference material. Sometimes they will be using other books, and then if that's the case you've got to find out what they're using. Now this is what we say anyway. If you're an insolvency practitioner and you don't have this new 16th edition of Butterworth's Insolvency Law Handbook, why don't you? The very fact that this substantially heavy, and it is, but handy volume from LexisNexis has gone through 16 editions, and it attests to its completeness, accuracy, reliability and authority, which is why it's considered the definitive and indispensable work of reference for the insolvency specialist. And when I say that, it's not just barristers and solicitors. You've got accountants, and you've got all the other people involved, advisors and all the other groups of people who may find this book of some help, depending on what they are faced with from whatever organisation, whether it's the state through any of the departments, or whether it's actually the client or whoever it may well be. So as the publishers point out, quite rightly, it places at your fingertips the most comprehensive available collection of insolvency law source materials applicable in England and Wales and in Scotland. and it's also used for the JIEB examinations. So therefore it's something that will be useful for a student and those seeking further qualifications. Armed with this new edition, you'll be completely up to date as of the 6th of April 2014, and I'm recording this in the summer of 2014. The latest developments are incorporated in its pages, including the changes to the insolvency regimes in England, Wales and Scotland since the last edition was published. All recent amendments and new legislation have been included, in particular, of course, the Insolvency Act 1986, which kicks it off, and with its amendments, the Insolvency Rules 1986 as amended, and the relevant provisions of the Financial Services Banking Reform Act 2013. And of course, remember, we are in 2014 at the moment, and an election in 2015, there will probably be further legislation and amendments at a later stage, I'm sure. The editors, that's Glen Davis, Queen's Counsel, assisted by Marcus Haywood, are both acknowledged experts in this field of insolvency, and they've drawn the attention of readers to the new Part 7, which, as they explain, collates the relevant primary legislation and statutory instruments relating to special insolvency regimes in England and Wales, notably in banking. Other sectors covered in this chapter include air traffic, building societies, energy companies, friendly societies, health, infrastructure systems, that's including the Banking Reform Act 2013, insurance investment, postals, railways, the water industry, and a great deal more. Also important for the busy practitioner and advisor is the book's navigability. Now, I mentioned at the beginning that you've got a standard contents, then you've got an alphabetic contents, and you've got a detailed index at the back. So you should be able to find things pretty quickly. And by the way, if you're a student, that's quite important, because if you have an open book exam and you've got that, you must know your way around this or the CCH editions or whatever you're using. You've got to know your way around them so you save time in the examination hall. When you're using a reference work of this size and scope, knowing how to look up the material you want when you want it is actually quite reassuring. And remember, you're going to be under pressure. I've certainly had this, where the judge will throw a blinder at you and expect you to know. He'll give you a few minutes, but you've actually sometimes got to ask for a short adjournment to try and find it, because it's not necessarily going to be instantly available. But this book, I think, helps immensely in that regard. So with ease of use in mind, this book provides a minutely detailed table of contents, some 16 pages long, which is at the back, also some 6 pages, which contains an alphabetic list of contents, which I referred to earlier. And there's an extensive 85-page index right at the back, as I've said, which I think we'll find it is actually very complete, and that's really very helpful for us. Also, if you read the preface, there are some useful notes and comments which I've mentioned, which will guide you as to the interpretation of some of the words in the statutes and the statutory instruments and rules. It obviously explains the style elements of the handbook itself, and the brief summaries of the material contained in all 19 sections is also very helpful as a quick finder, if you like. So let me conclude by saying, so comprehensive is this volume that it would be a prudent purchase, not just for the insolvency practitioner, for whom it would be considered essential in our view, but for any practitioner dealing with any aspect of financial services. Every well-stocked professional library, therefore, should have a copy. Obviously, accountants will as well. But I would expect to see this in most places. Let me just remind you of what it is. Very heavy book. As I say, very, very detailed. Let me give you an example. You can see the miscellaneous statutory instruments there. It's an absolute minefield. That's the back again. See, I'm weighing it up quite heavily. But as I say, I think one of the things that is useful is the shaded areas, which will show you where the bits are, and then with post-it notes you can find the stuff quite easily. And it's not a loose leaf reference work, so you've not got to lug the whole lot around with you. I'm very pleased with it. I'd like to thank Lexis, Butterworths, and also all the people involved in producing the new handbook. They produce a series of these handbooks, which I mentioned before. We review some of them. You can see the list there. They're all very, very high quality. they are where the law is, effectively, apart from looking at Halsbury. So, as I've said, thank you very much to all concerned. This review is going to be on the web, and it'll also be in the journals. So thank you very much to all concerned. Bye-bye.